welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am here with the author of a really nice, cozy fantasy book, which is actually like, it's so funny because that's becoming one of my new favorite genres. I'm generally like a horror person, dark fantasy, but I have been really enjoying a lot of the cozy fantasy books that are coming out as like almost like a another side to it. I think, and I think like there's a lot of reasons for that for me personally, but I'm enjoying seeing just this genre bloom. So before we really get into it, I would like to invite you to introduce yourself to everybody and tell us about Magic and Mischief at the Wayside Hotel.
Okay, my name is Elizabeth Everett, and I am the author of two series: the Secret Scientists of London and the Damsels of Discovery. So up until now, I have written historical romance, very fact-based, about women scientists, and so the women heroines that I write about are all based on historical figures, and it's set in the 1840s, and it's very much a commentary on on women today in the sciences by looking back. So it's still got some slapstick humor in it, but it's a little bit more it was a little more serious, took on issues, not issues, but looked at things like, reproductive health and abortion care and misogyny, then and now. And and so this book, Magic and Mischief at the Wayside Hotel, is very different in that it's a contemporary setting. I actually set it in my hometown of Rochester, New York, even though it is a fantasy. It is still a romance, and it is still important to me that I write women characters with autonomy and strength and smarts, and I write male characters that support them. So that hasn't changed. And my kind of low grade physical humor hasn't changed either, for those of you who, like me, enjoy seeing people fall downstairs. It's still there. But I think that I know that my publisher and a lot of the big five publishers have turned away from historical romance lately. Folks are not buying it. And when I said, well, what do you want to see? They said cozy. Everybody is looking for something cozy. And this was as close to cozy as I could force myself to get, because I didn't know how much cozier I could be without tipping over into maybe a different genre.
Well, it was really sweet. I really loved the characters. I liked the setting. And the book had a lot of fun, and the book was a lot of fun, I should say. So it's the story of a few things. It's the story of Pax, who manages this sentient hotel full of magical beings. And it's the story of Josie, who is a single widowed woman, at a very young age, widowed, with her young son, Amos. And uh, the hotel itself is ailing. And it's almost like it feels almost TARDIS like it sets up.
People have said that to me, and
Yeah.
it's not it wasn't a concept I drew upon or was thinking about at all, because I never watched the show. But that's what people who are fans of Doctor Who have said to me, is that it reminds them of the TARDIS.
Yeah, because it shows up, it shows up in town, and it becomes this hotel. Instead of hotel, it becomes this apartment building, and Josie is in need of a place to stay. And the Pax needs some way to somehow find out what's ailing this hotel, so it could continue to travel. And he decides that he's going to fill a vacancy with Josie and her son, which puts off like a lot of drama within the building at first, because they've never experienced this. They've never been in this situation before, the residents. So like, where did that particular concept come from for you? Not necessarily the hotel, just this idea of both Pax and Josie and how they were going to come together.
Well, when I write characters, I write the kind of people I want to spend time with. So that's where Josie and Pax come from. My mom was a single mom, and she did all the things with myself and my siblings that Josie does with her son. And I think that, and I found her incredibly admirable even as a child, and I still admire her. And so I thought it was also nice to kind of pay homage to her in the character of Josie. But I just created a place where I would want to spend hours and hours, because I had to spend hours and hours. And, and I created the people, and I brought in the people with whom I would want to spend time. It was a bit of a shock to go from the historically or the period accurate language of the 1840s to today's language. And so Pax was my sort of bridge, because he is a paladin, which is a type of a knight, and he's a magical paladin. And so I could really kind of, if I messed up and said thou or thoth or whatever, do you know what I mean? Then I could blame it on the fact that Pax is from another world. And that's actually what I did with a lot of this book. Was I just, every time I thought I was messing up, I say, oh, what? They're from another world. It doesn't, they're from another world, and they just landed in the most magic-less place on earth, which would be Rochester, New York in March. Like, I can't think of any place less magical. So the conflict was built in right there, right? Is that if you're a building full of magical creatures and you wind up in upstate at the tail end of winter, uh, it's got to be pretty jarring.
And I liked just how Josie sort of interacted with all the residents versus Amos. He's little, so he sees a lot of things almost as like magical because he's a little kid. And the interesting thing is that he never met his father. His father passed before he was even born. So it's not even like, it's not even like he's able to really mourn, or at least at this age, mourn someone he's never met. And Josie is, it's really hard to be a single mom. It's hard to be a mom of a 4-year-old, period. And, for her, like, she sees this situation, and it's like this is a too perfect situation, but also she needs it. So it's like she goes into it and she meets all of these residents with their idiosyncrasies, and Pax, who is super good looking and maybe a little bit different. And it's just kind of fun to see it through both of their eyes, and then also through the residents' eyes, like when they see this pair come in. And like Pax has this, like, it has to work out in his mind, because this is what he really believes the hotel needs. So it's almost like it's a fish out of water story for the hotel and its residents, but also for Josie, who is sort of learning to live as a human amongst a bunch of mythical, magical creatures without knowing it at first, at least.
Right. At first she doesn't, yes. And that was fun too. Is that at first she she knows something is up, Something is definitely up, but never in a million years would she think that it's because everyone in the hotel is magic. Like that's just not. And it's such a fun conceit that I just kind of giggled to myself the entire time I wrote the book. I was like, it was just fun.
Well, it was definitely fun to read as well. Did you have it really plotted out before you finished it, or did it take a few turns that maybe you weren't expecting?
Um, Both. I mean, I'm a plotter. I have to be with my other books because they're so science heavy and fact heavy. So I am a plotter. So I had the plot all set. But then I had to start imagining, okay, I've got this gnome, this really constipated, like literally, figuratively, emotionally, socially gnome. And he comes to this world, and the representation he sees of himself is this. Like, how is he going to? So I had the plot down, but the actual scenes were each so much fun to write because I just tried to get into each one of their heads. Like, if I was a fairy, what? First of all, what even? So there was one point in the middle of it, and I said to my editor, "I have to commit to this as an author. I have to believe in them. I have to not be writing this tongue in cheek. I can't be writing this as a joke. I'm not. This is not meta. I have to really commit to this story. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Otherwise, it comes off as it's going to feel clunky and artificial and cutesy. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be, you know, I wanted it. I don't think its emotional impact would make a difference if I didn't commit to it and treat them all these characters with respect.
Yeah, no, that is that works. And I think like you really, I mean, really, there's different types of fantasy, but I think the thing that you like as a reader need, at least, myself and, others are like to be able to or to want to suspend your disbelief. So it either has to, I mean, it can be a measure of a few things. It could be that you're reading a book that's high fantasy and the characters are you're so into the plot and that you want to believe, so even if something might be a little, you're just like, "Oh, okay, like I'm committed to it." It could be that the characters are believable. It could be that the world is believable, but I think like one of the things that this genre seems to be doing is kind of weaving all of that together. So like like the author has to commit, but I think like especially if you're going to do something that's contemporary in a way, you really want the readers to commit because, while yeah, you have your characters that are from another world and you can slip up language wise, in essence, the setting is very familiar and you need the reader to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's probably one of the reasons like that this genre is really taking off because it does kind of scratch all of those itches and sort of brings like a little bit of whimsy and fantasy into it. So you did a really good job. I really liked all the residents. I liked that there's like, I like how you sort of brought in certain modern day things like like Taylor Swift almost being like a deity to certain characters. I mean, she's a deity to like people
Yeah,
too,
she is.
yeah. I
She
mean,
is. Yeah,
she
she is.
really is like worshipped by a certain subset of the population. So it made a lot of sense, but kind of bringing that contemporary bit into, like, well, what would magical beings see as the closest thing that they could to their own world here was like really, really well done.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I thought that was, that was the most, that was the, for me, that was the most creative part of it, was being true to each of these characters in a situation that's just not true. you know, because again, it's a romance, and romance, I write in that genre for a reason. I write in romance because it centers self love as much as it centers love for the other. But there's always some sort of character arc, there's always some sort of growth. And I think that the reason that it resonates so much right now is that we live in a time where that is not being centered, where things like unconditional love and selflessness and communication and compromise, those are all things that are seen in a negative light and are spoken of negatively by people in charge. And um, they're even, it's threatening in a way to people in power when folks are not scared and not angry and not frustrated, but instead they're thinking about being kind and grateful and loving. That's a threat to power. And that's why I write romance. And I don't have to hit anybody over the head with that. I just have to, as I said, like commit. I just have to commit to believing. And I do believe that love is more powerful than hate or fear. And I think if you keep that in the back of your mind when you're writing a book, then it's gonna work on, on some level.
Absolutely, and very well said. And there is a lot of like love in this book, which it's very sweet. I don't want to give too much away. I am curious, do you have I mean, you have your romantic lead and your romantic you have female main character, you have a romantic male main character. Um, the side characters, do you have any favorites that kind of popped up?
Yes, yeah, I do. I do. So one of my favorites is the assistant hotel manager, who is a Medusa. Her name is Maddie, and she has to hide her hair from the world, right? Because she's a head full of snakes. And I created a world where Medusas will turn you to stone if you lie to them while you see their hair, as opposed to just turn to stone if you see their hair. Um, and she is uh she's one of my favorite types of people in the real world. She's a woman who's got a lot going on. She's very busy. She's got all these responsibilities, and no one is stepping up. So it gives her a little bit of an edge. And I love a woman with an edge. I love a woman who's just like, not got time to be beating around any bushes. She has things to do, people to torment, whatever it is that she's got on her plate. She's got to go do it. So she has so as I was writing her backstory came to me as I was writing her. So now I'm like, I could write 5 books about that woman.
Are you planning on
Mm.
it?
Well, I mean, so that happens to me though with every book that I write. I don't know if this happens to other authors or if this happens, like this would happen to me as a reader as well. I get a lot of times I get the comment that things feel a little bit unfinished, and it's because these characters become books in and of themselves, and I don't have time to write those books, and I you know, I want to tell you it's going to happen, but I don't have an extra 300 pages. But I remember as a reader doing that, like falling in love, like as a reader, even now, falling in love with a side character and being like, oh, you know, what's their deal? What's going on with them?
So this was a great book, a great read. Do you think that you would continue on with this genre, if given the chance?
Well, there is a second book
Okay.
coming. Okay, so this is the first book in the Wayside Chronicles. And I turned in the second book. It's called, I have a title already. It's called The Wayside Guide to Baking and Bloodlust.
Is
And
the vampire going to be involved in that one?
yes. It's not a spoiler. Yes. So the vampire is my hero in the second book, which if you read the first book, you're going to think to yourself, how is that going to work? But I like to write heroes who, need a little bit of a push sometimes to be their best selves. And this guy certainly does. So, and then we'll see, we'll see how this does. And if they want a third or a fourth book, I do that. But I think this whole question of fantasy, magical realism, cozy, paranormal, I think I don't know about you because you are at a library and so you have a lot of people coming through who ask you a lot of questions. But it seems to me very much of the moment that right now, no matter where you land on a political spectrum, you see that folks are siloing themselves, that it's difficult to really engage in a diverse community, however you define diverse. And that's very stressful for people. And again, like I said, people don't make money off of love and happiness. They make money off of fear and anxiety. So in this time of great fear and anxiety, I think that this escapism of fantasy, of magical realism, and the need for it to be cozy and not for the stakes to be so high, it's very much of the moment. So I'm happy to continue to write in that genre for a while, but I also think that I'm also hoping that it's not going to be as necessary in the next 5 years as it is right now.
Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to the next one. Check out Magic and Mischief at the Wayside Hotel. This was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was
Elizabeth Everett.
And we are going to close the chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.